Hello, trust you're staying safe wherever you're joining from and hope you're having a great time at DynamicsCon. Many thanks to the organizers and sponsors for making this possible. And to you all who voted this session, you're the real superheroes. I must say, it's an honor joining you from here in Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Kayode Ajayi, a business applications developer at Hashem Limited. And with me here is my colleague who will introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Victoria Igwe, a business applications developer at Hashem Limited, and trust you've been having a great time. Want to say thank you everyone for voting for this section, and also thank you to the organizers of DynamicsCon.
So Victoria, in this session, I'm going to be showing how to create responsive layouts in Canvas apps.
Responsive layouts? I thought Canvas apps are naturally responsive.
That's true, Victoria. But the default responsive behavior of Canvas apps is to scale the app to fit the current screen size. While that is sufficient in some cases, there are times when your Canvas app needs to be tailored to the device that is viewing the app. In that case, making your Canvas app responsive will be helpful for the users. Vicky, can you share with us what your understanding of responsive layouts are?
Oh, yeah, I'll just go ahead. So, responsiveness as a concept is when an application can fit into different screen sizes without breaking the design. Everything should appear the way you want it to, no matter the screen size. When your application is responsive, the design will change appearance to look beautiful on any screen size.
Great. Thank you, Victoria, for that insight. Now, I'm going to be showing 5 steps with which we can create responsive layouts in Canvas apps. Now, the first step is for you to turn off scale to fit. Now, the default responsive behavior is for Canvas apps to scale to fit the current screen size. And so the first thing you have to do is to turn off scale to fit. Once you do that, you have more control over the scaling of the app. Then after you've turned off scale to fit, you will observe that the app is going to expand, okay? Then at this point, there might be some clipping of some elements on your screen. So in that case, you will need to add a scrolling canvas. Then after you've added a scrolling canvas so that the elements on your screen are going to be visible to the users and the users will be able to scroll, the next thing you have to do is to configure the size breakpoints. Now, the size breakpoint is what Canvas app used to switch between the different screen sizes. So it's the variable Canvas apps used to know what screen it's currently on. Then you need to configure that so that it can work for the screen size you intend to make it work for. Then the next thing you have to do is to implement responsiveness using a toggle. Later on, I'm going to show you why using a toggle is very important for this method. Then after that, you will do a cleanup on the interface and make sure that the user doesn't get to click what he is not supposed to click. And at the end of the day, after you've cleaned up the interface, the users will get to see a clean and clear responsive app.
Wow, this sounds really interesting. Hope you don't mind showing us how this works.
Oh, yes. Let's go straight into the demo. Now for the demo, we can see on my screen here is the default responsive behavior of Canvas apps. Now you observe that when I minimize, we see that the app is not responsive. And by the time we reload the app, it actually scales it to fit the current width of the screen. This is useful for some cases, but imagine you are opening this app from a mobile device, then it will become a problem and the user might have to switch to a landscape view before he can use the app very well. And that might not be what we want for some apps. If we are creating an app that the user will get to use it a lot on mobile, we want to create a custom experience for the user. So now this is what happens. So once you turn off scale to fit, now I am on a wide screen here, and you can see now we've turned off scale to fit. So you can see there is a space around, okay? Canvas apps is not doing the scaling for us any longer. So now we have the control in our hands. But you're going to observe that still the app is not so usable on a mobile device because it's not yet responsive, but we are heading there. We are heading in the right direction. So then the next step I said was to add a scroll bar if necessary. So before you observe that once I'm on this kind of view and I minimize my screen this way, you will see some elements are already being cut off and there's no way I can reach those elements. So that's where the scroll bar comes in. Now you can see in this part where I've added the scroll bar, now I'm able to reach those elements that were cut off from the screen previously. So we're heading there. Now the next thing we have to do is to configure the size breakpoints. Now here on the screen, you will see we have this text here. So we have screen size.small, screen size.medium, screen size.large, screen size.extra large. Now those are 4 variables that that we are able to use to know what our current screen size is. So now you can see parent.size, which is very important. Parent.size is what tells us what size our screen is on currently. So you see that once I minimize the screen here, parent.size has changed to 3. And if I minimize it further, you will see parent.size has changed to 2. And if I go further, you will see parent.size is 1. So using this variable, we are able to know what is the current screen size. So now that parent.size is 1, we are able to know that we are on a small screen. And when parent.size is 2, we know we are on a medium screen. And when parent.size is 3 and 4, we know we are on a large and extra large screen, respectively. So that's the thing about the size breakpoint. And we'll get to see how we can set that for us to be able to view. Then the next thing is putting it in a toggle. So what we have in our toggle is very simple. With the toggle, we just have an if statement that we use to check what size our screen is. So we have that in our default property, and you will observe that once I minimize, you see now the toggle has changed to phone. So at this point, the toggle button is able to recognize that we are on a phone, okay? And we have that changing automatically. So later on, we'll get to see the code that actually makes that possible. And one reason why the toggle is actually helpful here is I can just click on this button to check. Now, once you are in edit mode, Canvas apps does not really allow you to preview a mobile screen, okay? Hopefully that will be coming later on in the pipeline. But right now, we don't have an easy way to preview a mobile screen. So having this toggle here is just a simple way you can see how your app is looking on a mobile device and how it's looking on a desktop device. So the next step is to do a cleanup. Now you observe that in the previous tab, we have this toggle showing here, but really you don't want your users to be clicking this button to switch, okay? So what we did here is we sent it to the back. Now, if you make the visibility to false, it's not going to work because a toggle needs to be on the screen for it to work. So what we just did is we sent it to the back. So right now, we'll just go into edit mode to see how all of those steps were taken. So now the first step that I said is to turn off scale to fit. Now, in order for you to turn off scale to fit, you will come over here to settings and you go to display and you see scale to fit here. So by default, scale to fit is turned on. So what you have to do is to come here and turn it off. All right. So after you've turned on scale to fit, in order to add a scrolling canvas, now there's a trick to do that. In order to add a scrolling canvas, you go to new screen and you click scrollable, okay? So once you have your scrollable screen, you go over here and you can see a canvas. So by default, this canvas allows scrolling. So just to show you, if I come here and I add a rectangle, now I'm going to make the rectangle large I'm going to make it considerably large, okay? And you observe that right now we have a scroll bar. So that is how you can get a scrolling canvas. So now I'm just going to delete this screen because we do not need it. So then the next thing is for you to configure size breakpoints. Now, where do you get access to the size breakpoint? You go into app. Now, once you come into app, if you come over here, you see size breakpoints. So now we can see here 600, 900, 1,200. What is this? Now, this 600 corresponds to the medium screen, okay? This 900 corresponds to the large screen, and 1,200 corresponds to the extra large screen. But we do not really need to bother about this because we have the functions. We have functions that Canvas Apps has provided for us to actually help us manage this, and which is this screen size dot small, okay? Screen size dot small, as you can see, screen size dot medium, screen size dot large, and screen size dot extra large. So you notice here, I passed in this formula and it's returning numbers, okay? So all these were done based on the breakpoints. Now, so let me go over here and bring the toggle back to the front. Now that I have the toggle at the front, so what you have to do for the toggle is you come to the default property of the toggle. And in the default property of the toggle, you put this simple code. If parent.size is less than 3, set it to true, else set it to false. And I have here in my false text, my true text, I have phone, and in my false text, I have desktop. So once we have this code already in our default, then the rest is child's play. So for example, if you look at the logo on the mobile screen, so let me quickly preview from here. On the desktop here, you can see the logo is in this location. And once we switch to the mobile, you can see the logo is centralized and it's on top over here. How did we make that happen? Let me quickly switch back to desktop, come back into edit mode. And now, if we come to the logo, you will see the property here. So let's take the width, for example. We notice the width was expanded on the mobile view. So here we just have this code that says if is mobile.value. Now, is mobile is the name I called my my toggle button, my toggle control, okay? So for the logo, I just have if is mobile, set it to parent.width, that's fill up the width, then else be this fixed width of 215. And that's basically what we are doing for the other elements. Take this data table, for example. If we check the Y property, we see that's what we have here. Because you will notice that once we are on the mobile, you can see the data table is not by the side of the pie chart, is now under the pie chart, and that's how we make that happen. Okay, so if I come back here to the data table, Y property, we can see that if is mobile, the value, that's if it's mobile, okay, pie chart.y plus pie chart.height, that's just setting it to go under the pie chart, else be a fixed position of 382. So that's it. It's a very simple demo. Then the next thing we have to do is just to clean it up. Now, first off, I'm just going to hide this group. I'm just going to make it not visible. Then the control, you remember I told you can't set the visibility to false. If you do that, it's not going to work. So what you can just do is you can just come here, reorder, and send to back. And you have a clean and clear user interface that is responsive for the users. So, and here we have it. So that's it. It's a very simple demo. And then you have a clean and clear user interface for the user. And you would observe that as we minimize, the interface adjusts based on the current screen size, okay? So here we have our responsive application. So as I said earlier, it's a very simple demo. And coming back in here, There are just a few pointers I would like to um, further discuss. Coming back to this toggle button, now you remember I said it's a very key element in this solution. So now if you look at this code that is in the toggle, this if parent.size is less than 3, okay? Now this parent.size, this parent.size property, now you can see the word parent there. So Canvas apps, when you say parents, the elements, it looks around it and finds out, am I in any control? Okay, so for example, if you look at your tree view here, you can see is mobile. The parent here is the screen. Okay, so for this case, whereby we have the toggle button with the screen as a parent, this code works perfectly. But now you remember I mentioned that when you turn off scale to fit, some elements are cut off, and then you might need to add the scrolling canvas. So that's where the problem starts. Okay, so because once you add the scrolling canvas, you get to see that the property of the parent no longer refers to the screen, but rather it refers to the canvas. So over here, so let's say I didn't use this toggle button. So really what you would have done if you were not going to use a toggle button is to have this, this code or this formula is to have it on every control where you want to resize or every control you want to make responsive. So in that case, for example, if we look at this text, if I want to make this text responsive, so maybe the width property now, I want it to be 435 on a desktop device here, and I want it to be parent.width on a mobile device. You're going to see there's a problem here. You're going to observe it says name isn't valid. The identifier isn't recognized. So that was a very big problem that I really had to battle with before I came up with this solution. So because once the parent property cannot be reached, this formula, your responsiveness cannot really work again. So rather than have you refer to the parent, what we can simply do is just refer to this toggle control. Okay, so right here, I can just come over here and rather than say this, the code is already in our toggle control, okay? And our toggle control is already serving as a Boolean variable. Okay, so now we know if is mobile.value is true, that means we are on a mobile string. And if it is false, that means we are on a desktop screen. Okay, so and that just solves our problem. So that was something that really gave me a whole lot of issues. Now, because this whole idea of this formula, it was actually something that I saw online. And, you know, for simple cases, it worked perfectly. But when you want to start building complex solutions, just doing it without this toggle control would begin to be much more cumbersome. Now, I must say that this is the easiest implementation of responsiveness in Canvas apps that I have come across. Now, because it was something that I really, really researched, and failure to get a simple and straightforward solution really made me thinker and come up with this solution. And really, it will be an honor to see the community adapting this solution in their application now, because it works, okay? And I've already shown you that in the demo. So for example, let's say we want to have an email or an image after this data type, for example. So that's part of the beauty of using the scrollable canvas. We can just come over here, right? And we can just pull it, we can just expand it So now you see we have, if I come over here, you see we have the scroll bar over there. So once I scroll down, I can come over here and add my image. Okay, so I'm just going to come here, media image. So let me bring it in from here. So now you now have to decide how you want your control to behave on a responsive device, or how you want it to behave on various devices. So this is where you now come in as a programmer and you architect the design. All right, so what we're going to do is quite similar to what we've had before. All right, let me quickly bring in an image. Let's see, add image. Then I'm going to come to pictures. Then right here, I'm just going to come to save pictures. And this is the image we want to add in to our solution. All right, so very good. Now, one thing you must note about building responsive applications is nothing is really done for you, okay? You really have to take your time to architect the solution and make it work the way you want it to work. It's really beautiful, right? Because it gives you control. Unlike when you have Canvas apps just doing it and you really don't, you just have only a few buttons to click in order to try to adapt what has been created to what you want. Okay, so but here you have the full control, and that's really beautiful. So first of all, let's say we want this to be centralized. Okay, we want it to be on the left on a desktop screen, okay? And we want it to be centralized on the mobile screen, okay? So what we can just quickly do is we can come to the X property. Now we have it 116. Let's say 116 is good enough for our desktop device. So we can just come here and say if is mobile, okay? So remember, is mobile is our toggle control. Okay, so we just gave it a name that kind of looks like a variable because we are actually using it as an on-screen variable that we can actually refer to at any time. So here we're just going to say if is mobile dot value. Now you can note that when you are dealing with Boolean variables, now you can see I'm saying if is mobile dot value. I could as well say if is mobile dot value is equal to true. Okay, so this statement and this statement, they actually mean the same. So because if we check is mobile dot value, it can either be true or it can either be false. So you really don't need to go ahead and say is equal to true. So occasionally, when I'm talking to people that are not so much experienced in programming, well, I get to use it is equal to true so that it doesn't get confusing. But as a developer, you should just know that once you're referring to a Boolean variable, you really don't need to equate it to either true or false again, because in itself, it is already either true or false. So that's by the way anyway. So now this is mobile.value. All right, let me close this bracket. Okay, to just take away that error. So now we want to it centralized on the mobile view, right? So what we can just do for that is we can just say parent dot width, okay, minus self dot width divided by 2. All right, so this code in itself, what it does, it takes the parents, okay, the width of the parents, okay, so here it's divided by 2. So it takes the width of the parents, and in this case, the parent is not the screen, right? The parent is this data card. Okay, so that's something you should note. Now, one thing about data cards, one thing about this canvas, scrolling canvas, is that when you're dealing with responsive apps and all, you need to turn up this width fit because if you don't do that, this data card is not going to expand to the width of the canvas. So even my canvas here, the canvas in itself, you can see I have a formula here which just says if it's mobile, I want it to be parent.width, okay? And if we're not on mobile, else, if it's not on mobile, I want parent.width minus rectangle11.width. Now you can see that's why for this canvas here, that's why you can see that when we are on the desktop view, this canvas, it doesn't fill up the entire screen, okay? It just fills up this section after this rectangle. So that's the code that really makes it happen there. So you see, is you placing your controls right now just begins to be a question of if and else statements, and that really solves a lot of problems. There are some implementations of responsiveness that have you go and use a container, but really I can say from experience, it's first of all it's limiting, and you get to have less control. You get to have less control over the outcome of your application. So you get to see yourself having to compromise or really take a lot of efforts to try to balance it, and in order to get the output you want. So, but with this solution here, it's just a question of if and else statement. All right, so here we're just saying if we're on a mobile screen, I want you to be the parent width. Okay, so really when you're doing responsiveness, you're going to be doing a lot of referencing to parents. Okay, and that's really what makes everything responsive. So if I come back here, if I just dial back to the slide that had to do with the breakpoint. So if I just dial back to the slide that had to do with the breakpoint, give me a second to pull that up. Okay, all right. So if I can just dial back to the one with the size breakpoint, I can see it right here. So you can see as I resize, you can observe app.width, okay? App.width is changing, okay? And that's really why we have to do a lot of referencing to parents of size. So because it's dynamic, so as the app width is changing, all these numbers are also changing, okay? So that's why sometimes in order to have your controls still look sensible on different screen sizes, apart from using this our toggle to switch, you also get to use the parent property. Okay, you also get to reference the parent size, and you're like, okay, if the parent expands to 100%, I want you to expand to 40%. Okay, so that's a percentage of the parent. So no matter whatever size the parent expands to, your control still remains that particular percentage. And we have that going on in a lot of areas. So for example, if you look at this, my pie chart here for the width, I have it going on here saying, okay, parent.width, so you still see that reference to parent. So it's important we do that a lot of times, okay? And here, so you see this now, you can see this is a form of a percentage relationship. So I'm saying parent.width times 0.28. So that's if I'm on the desktop screen. So that's why you observe that even as I reduce, you observe the pie chart itself actually reduced. Okay, so that's because we made it reference the parent size. So you can see how the size of the pie chart is also changing. So if we didn't do that, well, you might actually get to see the pie chart clipping into this data table, even though you already have responsiveness going on. All right, so that's something to note. That's really, really something to note over there. Then coming over here, so back to this image. So here we have it saying parent.width minus self.width. Parent.width minus self.width divided by 2. So this code in itself is going to place it to the center. So it's just simple arithmetic. What is the size of your parent? What is the size of the container in which you are? Okay, when you subtract it from your own width, okay, so that's what this self is. Self is saying what is the width of this image itself, okay? So once you subtract it, that gives you the space that is around the image. So by the time you divide it by 2, it's going to place your image to the center. All right. And well, and we're just going to say when we are on a desktop, now we can choose, we can say, I want it to be in position 316. Okay. So you can say that and you see it's changing here. I can say I want it to be in a fixed position of 600. And I can also say I want it to be parent dot width times 0.3, okay, or 0.1. So now in this case, irrespective of the size of the parent, you will actually see it adjust to so because we've actually put a form of a percentage relationship here. So now if we just come and play our app, and now this is what I was saying about you not being able to test responsiveness fully in Canvas apps. So for example, if I minimize this, so, and I say, let's come into a mobile. Now, even this, it wasn't really working this way before, but I guess the Power Apps team or the Canvas Apps team as Microsoft has actually made some changes. And hereby we still have some element of responsiveness that can be tested here, but you see it's being cut off. And by the time you expand, you can see it just goes away. So that's one other place where this toggle comes in handy, because you can just, when you want to preview how your design is looking on a mobile, for example, I can just click on this toggle and I see that yes, I have it in the center on the mobile. And so that's really it. There's a whole lot that can be done with this simple setup, a whole lot. Now if you look at all of these elements, we all have that aspect of responsiveness going on with it. So if you look at this rectangle, for example, the visible property, so I just have it say I want you to be visible only on desktop. So when we are not on a mobile device, so not is mobile.value, that's when it gets to show. And you remember we already have the code in the canvas to correspond to that says, well, when we are on a mobile, I want you to fill up the space. Okay, so we really don't miss the rectangle on mobile because the canvas is already filling up the space. But when we are on a desktop device, we have it create space for the rectangle. So very simple. I really hope that this has not been too over the top. I really hope it has been as basic as possible. Okay, and well, we look forward to your inputs. We look forward to your questions in the chat window. I hope this session has been insightful and you have learned something on implementing truly responsive layouts in Canvas apps. So Victoria, what do you think about this session?
Wow. I never knew it to be this easy to create a very responsive, a truly responsive Canvas app in Power Apps. I tell you, it was a very insightful section. Thank you very much for it.
Oh, great. It's really good to hear that feedback from you, Victoria. To every one of us, I hope this session has been insightful and you have learned something on implementing truly responsive layout in Canvas apps.
Do well to join us in the conference chat as we'll be looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Trust you're staying safe wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining from. Once again, my name is Kayode Ajayi, and I'm here with my colleague who will introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Trust you've been enjoying the event and you've learned a lot. Yeah, my name is Victoria and I'll be co moderating with Kayode. Look forward to answering all your questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Victoria. So for every one of you, really seen your questions during the session, and I really hope that you actually learned a lot on implementing responsive layouts in Canvas apps. So first, I think we're just going to go straight into the questions, and do note that you can keep your questions coming in while we do our best to answer every single one of them. So Victoria, please can you help me read out the questions?
All right. So, the first question: do you have any best practices for responsive design? Having the logo center is a great idea. Any other design elements you recommend at mobile size versus desktop?
Okay, that's a great question. Um, Talking about responsive design, I think the main aim of responsive design is for you to have applications that work well on multiple devices. So really, it's going to be about what is best in terms of design and user experience. So, for example, there are some elements that if you're to use them the same size they are on, while you're on a desktop device, if you had to use that same size on a mobile device, you would have it too big, and it might actually fill up the whole screen. So really, you would want to choose what is good for the user, because at the end of the day, you are building applications for people to use and for people to enjoy. So you don't want to build an application that people are just because they are compelled to use it. That's the only reason why they use it. So generally in the Power Platform, we build business applications. So some I've interacted with some designers that are like, well, these users, they have no choice, they need to use it because it is an organization application. But as an app designer, you should not think like that. You should actually create applications that people are happy to use, people are excited to use. So your what will really influence the size of your element should really be what will be the best for the user. I really hope able to clarify that. But so okay, so for example, in the demo, I showed the logo, for example. While we were on the desktop, we didn't have it fill up the whole screen, the whole width. But when we're on a mobile device, we had it fill up the whole width and we made it centralized. So that's because on a mobile device, if we were to keep it the same size as the desktop, it would be too small and it won't really bring up the brand image. So another example of that would be a sidebar, for example. So some applications have sidebar. Generally, on a mobile device, your sidebar is usually hidden. Probably you click on a toggle button, the hamburger icon. Until maybe when you click on that, then you show the sidebar. So just those little things are the differences between the mobile and the desktop device. So your main aim is not really about the controls themselves or the element, but it's really about what will serve the users right on that particular device you're targeting. I really hope I answered that question.
All right. Thank you very much. So, we'll be moving to the next question. Is there somewhere you've explained how you defined the sizes in more depth?
All right. So Now, I want to believe when you talk about sizes, you're referring to the screen size properties. I'm going to drop a link in the chat window now, in the Umbrella chat window, to a documentation from Microsoft. Okay, so that's really a link to the basic source material that really brought about this session. Okay, so the major difference between that material you're going to see and what we actually demoed is the use of a toggle. So because initially it was this material I came across when I was looking for a solution to um, responsive layout in Canvas apps, but I quickly got a blocker in the sense of I couldn't access the parent properties from within a canvas. Okay, so it was until much later, after a lot of tinkering, that's when I came up. That's when I came up with the idea of using a toggle. So because having the toggle really made it a form of an on-screen variable. So that really took away the limitation of this method. So, but that link is really the basic, and it's an official Microsoft documentation on responsive layout, how you can actually implement it. So there it talks about the screen orientation, the screen size property. So you really see how you can switch in between the screen size properties. Then it goes more in depth. It goes in depth into the breakpoints. All right. So I think when you go through the material, you would really see what I'm talking about. So, joining the content from the material and with what you've actually seen during the live session, I'm really confident that you will be able to replicate this. You'll be able to replicate this in your applications. All right.
Okay, so we'll proceed to the next question. If you have had an app that would use only mobile, but it has to be on phones or iPads, do you think this would be a valuable exercise to go through?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. So, really, now, if you look at Power Apps, or let me say Canvas apps to be precise, you observe when you want to create an app, you have an option of choosing either a phone layout or a tablet layout. Okay, so really, Canvas apps is has actually given us the platform to choose either one of those two. So this solution really works even when you're on a tablet layout, because generally when you choose tablet layout, the view you kind of get is a desktop view. Okay, so if your users are going to be on mobile phones and they're going to be on tablets, then yes, you're still going to use this same method, because in Canvas apps the tablet layout is actually the same layout that you see when you're designing for a desktop. So when you're designing for a desktop, you choose the tablet layout. So that's I think that the question is quite straightforward, Victoria, right? Um, so
Yes, it is. So we have the final question for now. Are there any advantages of making desktop or mobile screens separately and navigating the user to the correct screen versus making one design that is responsive?
that's a really interesting question. Okay, so the question is proposing um, having separate screens, so to speak, and so a particular screen is for your mobile users and a particular screen is for desktop users. Um, I wouldn't say that would work now, because, as I said in answering the previous question, when you are designing a Canvas app, you have to choose one of either a mobile view or a tablet, which I call a desktop view, because a lot of times when I choose tablets, I'm really designing for a desktop application. All right, so in that case, when you look at it that way, um, the moment you choose a desktop view, then that means you've um, you've taken away that option of the mobile users, because if somebody is viewing the application from a mobile, the view the person is going to see is a desktop view. So if I'm to rephrase your question, maybe your question now means you are designing a separate application for mobile users and a separate application for desktop users, whereby you know that the people who are choosing the mobile, so when you are designing for the mobile, you choose a mobile layout, and when you are designing for the desktop or the tablet, you choose a tablet layout. In that case, I won't say that's the most efficient, because that means you will have to do the same thing on the mobile app, and you have to replicate it on the desktop app. So imagine if there's need for a change, so you have to make those changes on the two separate applications. That's not really efficient. And to think of it, that's really how applications were kind of done before the whole responsive thing came to play. So I know even in the web design world, that's in the core dev world, before responsiveness was really a thing, you would have to design a website for mobile, and you have to design an entirely different one for desktop. So, but responsive layout really solves that problem, whereby you have a layout that is sensitive to the screen that is viewing the application. So, really, that's a better use case. You making your apps responsive. So, because when you want to implement your logic, you just have to implement it in one application, and it works for all devices. I think that's really the joy of every developer, to create applications that are accessible to your users. So you don't want to add a form of discomfort to users when they want to use your application. So you don't want to give them a form of restriction, and you want to give them a custom experience also. So in that case, responsive layouts will just be the way to go. So, but I would just say, I think I didn't really emphasize on this um, during the demo, but you don't necessarily need to make all your applications responsive. Okay, so I would want to say, with great power comes great responsibility. So it's not really about because you can do it, you have to do it. So you really have to sit back and think that, okay, is it really worth it? Are my users going to be coming from a mobile device only, or are they going to be coming from a desktop device only? Because really, in the world of business applications, there are some applications that would only exist on the mobile, on the desktop. All right, people don't need to use it on the mobile, but there are some that need to exist in both ways. That's really where responsive layouts will come in. I really hope that answered the question. Is there any more questions?
All right, thank you very much. So for now, there's no other question. We've attended to all the questions. Once again, want to say thanks for joining this section. And yes, thanks to the organizers of DynamicsCon.
All right, great. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, everyone. It's really been a great time. I would enjoy you to stay tuned to other sessions. There has been a whole lot of information being being given out on this Dynamics Con platform. So once again, many thanks to the organizers, many thanks to every sponsor that have really made this event possible. Okay, so to all superheroes out there, have a wonderful day, and keep on enjoying Dynamics Con. Take care till next time. Bye.